Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our awesome friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. Coming up on this episode of the podcast, we're going to chat with our good friends Joe and Bill, former Badger offensive lineman. Bill played a little bit in the NFL as well. We're going to talk to them about great questions and just an awesome, fun conversation. It's always really cool and hilarious to hear those two guys together talk, but just, kind of talking about their playing days and interesting to get their thoughts on, the style of defense that maybe gave them the most fits or was maybe the most difficult to go up against, and a bunch of other awesome stuff there too. So that's coming up in the second half of this podcast. But we begin with finally, right? Finally. It seems like it's been forever, but it's really only been a little over a week. But maybe for some fans, took a little too long. Packers have a new defensive coordinator. Jeff Hafley, head coach from Boston College, coming over to be the defensive coordinator for the Packers. Now, my first impressions of this was probably like a lot of other fans' first impressions of this. You're like, a who? A what? Like, excuse me? Who is that? Because we didn't hear his name as part of the process. We didn't hear that he had interviewed. So he wasn't one of those names that was, I guess, leaked out or reported to be going over there for an interview. So after that initial wave of like, huh? Who? He's not even in the NFL? You start to look at it. You start to read up and watch some clips and listen to other people who may be a little bit smarter than us. And then I think after we all did that, kind of like, okay, this is an intriguing move. I kind of like this move. Now, I'll start off by saying we don't know how the heck this is going to work out until games start going, right? We don't know. We know nothing about this. We don't know if it's going to work out. It might be great. It might be bad. It might be somewhere in the middle. We won't know until we actually get to games. But if we look at some of the stuff that's been out there, we kind of get an idea of maybe his mindset, his scheme, his goals, his philosophy, that sort of thing. Now, quick background, he was head coach at Boston College these last few years. Was co-defensive coordinator at Ohio State in 2019. Before that, he was defensive backs coach for the 49ers under Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh. Then was defensive backs coach in Cleveland under Mike Pettin, but Kyle Shanahan was also there as offensive coordinator. So he does have some experience in the NFL. And by some reports, he wanted to kind of move on from the college game because, like a lot of coaches, it seems like now, either retiring or getting out of the college game because the college football landscape has changed so much, NILs, transfer portals, etc. And it sounds like he just wants to focus on football, wants to coach football. So you got that. Let me say this too. There's been some reports about whether he's a really good friend of Matt LaFleur's. ESPN reported that. Others, local media have said, not really. Not that much. They know of each other, but they're not necessarily like really good friends. I don't give a you-know-what. I don't care, okay? I don't care if they're BFFs, if they were, childhood friends, or this is the first time they met, somewhere in between. I don't care. I just want a really good football coach, a good defensive coordinator. We see examples right now in the league of coaches having their friends as coordinators, and it's working. Kansas City. We've seen where coaches have brought in, other coordinators who they've never worked with, but they know their background, they know their resume is pretty good, and it didn't work out. Most recently, Brian Daboll and Wink Martindale lasted like a year and a half, and I say year and a half even though they did 2 years together because there was already reports halfway through the season that they were not getting along. So you got examples all across the board, okay? There's examples of this across. I don't care. I just want a good football coach. So what can we expect from Jeff Hafley? What can we expect from him? Style of defense. That's the big question out there, right? Well, you look at some of the stuff he's done and some of the defenses he's been around. There's some talk it could be a 4-3. There's some talk it could be, kind of a wide 9 or, 4-2-5, maybe elements of 3-4. It's all over the place. For one, I think that gap has changed where how long ago it was, there was straight up differences, big time differences between 4-3s and 3-4s. I think that gap has shrunk. I think there's elements of a bunch of styles of defense into one collective defense now. I think, you can kind of pick apart and choose different ones and have different packages. We know a lot of defenses now majority of them are ran in nickel formations with the third extra defensive back, cornerback in there. So while it kind of seems like that maybe we're going to get elements of a base 4-3 with him coming in, if that is the case, I don't think that'll be an issue with Green Bay. I think Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Lucas Van Ness, those guys, they can have their hand in the dirt and they'll be fine as an end. Kind of similar maybe to like Micah Parsons' role with the Dallas Cowboys, maybe for like a Rashawn Gary such. So I don't think that'll be an issue. I think one of the biggest ones I'll be curious about is the linebacker position. Now, again, it could be a 4-2-5, 2 linebackers. If it is if you're doing straight up base 4-3, which, I think you got to be careful with that, just assuming it's going to be a base 4-3, you're kind of looking at, okay, does linebacker then be kind of move up in terms of the priority order of trying to, maybe get some more help over there? You got Quay Walker. We don't know about Devondre Campbell if he's coming back. Isaiah McDuffie, who did play for Jeff Hafley at BC, you got him there. I think they want to give him a little bit more exposure, but you probably need some more depth at that position. But what I think has a lot of Packer fans excited with this hire too is that he is a proponent of press coverage. He wants to press cover. I read this quote the other night when it broke, and you're kind of doing some research and you're looking at, okay, what type of coach is he? What is he going to run? And all that sort of stuff. And there was this quote that I had read online. It said, this was from him when he was in Ohio State. Love press man. Got to be able to play press man. Have to be able to. I think it's a fundamental technique that's kind of lost in football right now, and it's hard, and you've got to work it. Assuming he has that same mindset coming into Green Bay, I think a lot of Packers fans are excited about that because that has been something Packers fans have been clamoring for a while now, is to get those corners closer to the line of scrimmage and playing press coverage. Another thing that I think has got Packers fans excited about this, you keep hearing the word aggressive. Dan Orlovsky used it. Just tweeting out he liked the hire, much, much more aggressive. You're going to see that with this defense. So I think that's what has Packer fans excited about this. Initially, it was like, who the heck is that? Why are we going to the college ranks? Once that wore off and you start doing your research and you start doing your background look and you're like, okay, and you start listening to the guy talk and talk about his scheme, his philosophy, it's like, I like it. It's kind of like fans went through their own interview process with him. Matt LaFleur brings him in, interview. What are you going to do? What's your thought on our team right now? How would you construct your defense? I like it. You're hired. It's kind of like the fans did their own sort of interview with him, going through the different articles and videos and seeing what they got with him. And I'm optimistic about this. I've got no other reason not to be, right? I got no other reason not to be because I don't know what's going to happen. I think what I'm really excited about, though, too, is that it is going to be something different. It's not going to be something from the same style of defense that we have seen the last few years. We are, by all accounts, going to be a little bit more aggressive, which I like. There's risks to that, no doubt about it. You open up yourself to maybe some more big plays, but I'm cautiously optimistic. And I use the word cautiously, and I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but I'm just like, I don't want to get my hopes up way too high just because we don't know yet. We don't know yet. I do hope Matt LaFleur allows him to go out there and bring some of his own assistants in or bring some guys that he knows. Because if you are going to kind of reshape this defense, I think you've got to bring, some of your guys in to help with that, to help coach it, to help teach it. I know there's been conflicting reports about who's going, like if he's going to keep the position coaches or not, or maybe some of them. We'll see in the coming days. But I do hope that he's allowed to at least bring some of his coaches in to help coach that defense. But I think this is a new era of Packers defense. That's the one thing we know for sure. This is a new era of Packers defense. maybe even a little bit more of an aggressive era of Packers defense. It's something different that a lot of fans have wanted to see for a while now. All right, let's take a quick break, and let's talk to Joe and Bill after these quick words. Winter is here in the Chippewa Valley, which means it's even more important to make sure you have a good vehicle to hit the winter roads of Wisconsin. Need that vehicle for this winter season? Look no further than Toyson Ford in Chippewa Falls. Whether it's a car, truck, or SUV from their new or used inventory, Toyson Ford has the vehicle you're looking for. Making sure you have a good, proper working vehicle is incredibly important this winter season, and Toyson Ford knows that. Just give them a visit today at 1000 Chippewa Crossing Boulevard and visit ToysonFord.com. It's that time of year where we may be stuck indoors for a bit, so you need to make sure your pantries, fridge, and freezers are fully stocked. How do you do that while also saving some money? Easy. Just shop at Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Whether it's stocking the pantry with soups or dried goods, or loading up the deep freezer with pizzas and frozen foods, Hy-Vee has the best selection to help keep you stocked during the winter months. And with their Hy-Vee perks, you'll save money at the register and the gas pump. Stock up on your favorite grocery items and save money with Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Back with our good friends from Cabin Coffee. We've got Joe. We've got Bill also back in studio. Gentlemen, how's the podcast coming? Getting there?
You know, we're just this is so new to us. We're just trying to, we're at step 2.5, and then we go back to step 1, trying to figure this out. We are not IT guys. People who are, kudos to you. We're just trying to figure out.
To put it in football terms, I feel like we both just got traded to a new team and we're trying to learn an offense.
I would say that's it.
I've always said to people, learning a new offense is like learning a new language, and we're truly learning a new language right now.
It's a good analogy. Yeah, I like
that. But it's a fun deal. We're excited about it. We're definitely learning a lot. You've been giving us a lot of help, which we're tremendously thankful for. But it's a process, a lot of learning going into it. So hopefully we have a good product to put out, and we're excited.
Well, just kind of seeing and listening to you guys talk, it's going to be a really good, really entertaining podcast.
If we get all the plugins plugged into the proper spots and the dials turned the right way, it should be good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Change the batteries in the label maker, Bill. Make sure that baby's fired up.
Exactly.
You got some social media accounts, too, that people should be following.
We do.
Well.
We started getting our 217 Mills up live on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we're starting to, right now we're just pubbing some of the past. We got some old school pictures of when we first met.
Nice button-up shirts in that one picture, by the way, you too.
That was, we looked at it now 30 years later, and we're like, did we try and talk to each other to organize to both wear khakis, we're like, why do we look so similar? Like, even Joe's family is like, did you guys coordinate your outfits? And we're like, we had no idea. We just threw on probably whatever was clean that day, right? And we looked somewhat professional. But yeah, it's basically at 217 South Mills. And we have a YouTube account. We don't have anything on there yet, obviously, because once we start producing some shows, we'll be getting the links up. But yeah, we're grateful for Cabin Coffee, Altoona, for sponsoring us. And probably after we get our first 6 episodes downloaded, we're going to be recording live from Cabin Coffee, and they'll be putting out to their network when and where we'll be doing that. So I'm excited. That's awesome.
Looking forward to that for sure. It's going to be really cool. So, hey, we got a couple questions for you guys from some listeners out there, and I think it's probably related to the news with Green Bay getting in a new defensive coordinator. And for the longest time they were 3-4. Now are they going to go to a 4-3? You hear wide 9 and 4-2-5s, all that sort of stuff. And one listener, Bill, was asking, was there a certain style of defense when you guys were playing that was more difficult to prepare for?
I guess I don't know if it's more difficult to prepare for. I just said we didn't see a lot of 3-4 defenses in college. Our run game was pretty incredible. Mm-hmm. And the last thing you want to do is put 3 down linemen in front of our Wisconsin football offensive linemen.
Right.
So we rarely saw it. We usually use a 4-3 or Bears. So I guess I wouldn't say it's harder. Not harder, I guess. It depends on how much confidence you think you have in your in your secondary. If you think that your secondary is a little bit weaker, then you're gonna want guys, the 3-4, but for the most part, it was usually 4-3.
Mm-hmm. And I'd say there's usually one team that likes doing things differently, and the rest of the league watches to see if it works or doesn't work. And probably the one defense I just thought of that we did face in college that was different was Minnesota. Minnesota, the Gophers, they used to have one lineman line up off the ball, and it was just it's screwed with your head because you see X's and O's on paper and everybody does it the same way. And then all of a sudden they got a D lineman lining up half the distance between the D line and linebacker level in a standing position. So now you got to account for him as a down lineman, but he's got the movement to be able to go many different areas. When I was in the league in the NFL, Atlanta was the only team that ran the 3-4. But at the same time too, while Joe and I were playing, and then while I was in the NFL the running game was much bigger than it is right now. Now it's a passing league. People want to put up points, and that's why I feel everybody's going to the 3-4. So, yeah. I mean, I'd like to see more 4-3, especially out of Green Bay, just to be able to stop that run. But you're putting pressure on your corners and your safety. So it's just trying to get that defense to become complete.
Do you think, too, because with how mobile quarterbacks are now, running the football, I mean,
absolutely.
That adds that new wrinkle into everything.
Absolutely.
And how you play
that game
defense.
has changed so much where back then, look at a Brett Favre or for sure Brett Favre. He could run the ball if he wanted, but Brett wants to throw that ball.
Right.
You're not that concerned about Brett leaving the pocket, where today, name a quarterback that doesn't leave the pocket. Almost everybody scrambles, gets those big runs, and it's something you have to account for in today's game.
Yeah.
And as the offensive lineman, you want that ability to have your quarterback scramble at the same time. It's all about timing. I mean, now you're looking at coverage sacks because your quarterback is not where you thought he was going to be, where the pocket is, and he's scrambling, and being creative and making plays. So I think it puts a lot of pressure on the offensive lineman, especially because you have no idea where he's going to be or where they're going to be going, and then all of a sudden you look really foolish when you give up a sack and everyone celebrates and you're the guy in the background with your head down. So
right.
And to Joe's point about the offensive lineman, we know our blocking scheme, but within our blocking scheme, we also know where that quarterback is supposed to be lined up. So, for instance, if it was a two-jet and the line is sliding to the left, the whole line is sliding, protecting the gap on your left, you're expecting that quarterback to be lined up behind the right guard or the right tackle, and then all of a sudden a scramble happens. If he scrambles to the left, you're not expecting him to be there. So when you're pushing your guy left and all of a sudden you push him right into the quarterback, now it makes you look bad, but you didn't know where the quarterback was. And then Joe said coverage sack. I would love for fans and everybody to learn what a coverage sack is. That is not the offensive lineman's fault. If you watch a quarterback running around for 9 seconds, that is not the offensive lineman's responsibility to block somebody that long. That's on the quarterback.
I kind of related that too, because you think a lot of fans, when we hear certain stuff like, I'll just mention because we're talking about off the air, zone runs, blocking scheme. You were talking a little bit about, when Mike McCarthy came in, and I remember that talk. He's bringing this in, with the linemen, just it's going to be a different style of running. It really wasn't, though.
No,
was it?
It was the same exact, and it really tripped me up. I was like, wait a second, he's bringing in the zone run game? I'm like, what the heck did we call what we did when I was there? We ran zone in college. I ran zone in Green Bay. Then Coach McCarthy comes in, and he's like, the media said he's bringing the zone in. And I remember calling up Mark Tauscher, and I go, what are you guys doing different than when I was there a couple years ago? He goes, same exact thing. But the media took it and run with it, and it was a story. And, I mean, good for them. It was something new that the fans would get hyped about. But for the most part, football is X's and O's. And Frank Winters, the Green Bay center, told me, coaches outcoach themselves. They overthink things. Football is a simple game, but when you give somebody, when it's that much pressure on you to get those wins week in and week out, you put so much pressure on that offense and and you start outthinking yourself a lot of times.
Let me ask you guys this, because it's been a topic this week: analytics in football. With Dan Campbell, a lot has he's been getting a lot of crap, for going for it on fourth down because the analytics say that, and maybe not kicking a field goal. I mean, I don't think analytics was kind of talked about when you guys were playing and such, but what are your general thoughts as former players about analytics being in the game? Or, because you look at Dan Campbell and he's a football guy, and you wouldn't think analytics would be involved with a Dan Campbell type of player. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think he is a coach that knows his players, and they got that far in the season based on what they were doing, and you don't change it up. You don't change up your offensive schemes or the way you've done things based on the game. You're playing that kind of football. He knows his players. He knows his guys. He knows his offensive linemen. And had they made those plays,
we're not talking about
greatest coach in the world to bring the Detroit Lions, back from wherever, from not really having much of a history. So shoulda, woulda, coulda. He knows his players. He's not going to change it up. I tell you what, I go to war with that guy any day of the week, just by the way way he talks, way he handles himself, and the way heck yeah, sign me up.
Yeah.
And I agree with Joe. I'd even add to it. There's certain thing, and I believe analytics is a good thing for football, and it's a good thing for coaches and to be aware of. But I think coaches understand there's things that analytics don't measure. They don't measure the momentum in the game, and how that affects a team is tremendous. I mean, you might not see it. You hear about it occasionally on TV, but sometimes like the TV timeouts. I mean, I remember in Wisconsin, the difference of a nationally televised game versus a non-nationally televised game, it's a difference like, I think 10 TV timeouts, something like that. I don't know the exact number. But all of a sudden, you're marching down, getting 6 yards at a pop or 15 yards at a pop. Then all of a sudden, TV timeout, 30-second break. Coaches get to talk to. It's like, what just happened? And that changes a lot. And that's something analytics can't take account for. And, like I know, like us at Wisconsin, there were many times we went for it on fourth down, and Coach Alvarez just staring us in the eye, being like, we're getting this yard. And we knew we're going to go out there and do it. Like, it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a war. But we just knew we were going to get it. Our coaching staff knew we were going to get it. And whatever the analytics would have said back then, we went out there and did it. And that's the way. And to Joe's point about Dan, it's like he did what he had to do. And the people that love him for that. I mean, I'll take that loss. That's what got them to this point, was following his coaching. And why change it 2 weeks before the end of the year?
I'm glad you brought up the momentum thing. I don't know if you saw George Kittle after the game, the tight end for the 49ers in Iowa one. And I've had this argument with people too, and it's always bugged me. But he said, I saw somewhere the analytics people don't believe in momentum. And I'm like, momentum's a thing. I mean, there's so much examples, and you just brought that up too. How is momentum not a thing? And I mean, it's got to be a huge factor in there.
Absolutely.
It's larger than people know or give credit for. As a player, you get into that rhythm, you get into that rhyme, and you're moving the ball, and then something happens, like you shoot yourself in the foot, drop ball, fumble, whatever it is, and you don't have that same momentum. I know Coach Alvarez always talks about that pendulum would swing and make sure that it's swinging more our direction than the other direction. And bend but don't break was another common thing that was said. You bend but don't break, you know. So I think it's more important than people give it credit for. It's that important.
A quick example I have from our time at college, we're playing at Ohio State in the shoe, and I think it was like still this day, like the third largest upset in Ohio State history. We go down 19-0 at halftime. We couldn't do anything right the first half. Ohio State was doing everything right. They were stopping us. They were scoring. We got probably one of the most intense halftime speeches of our career. I joke, even our AD, Pat Richter, came in and yelled at us. I later told his son, he's like, no, my dad didn't yell. I go, your dad yelled and used some choice words. And there were a lot of doors kicked. There was garbage cans thrown. That was the first day we had a garbage can thrown over our head. And we went out that second half. We scored 42 points and shut them out. So we won 42-19. And there's the perfect example of momentum. They had it the first half. We had it the second half. I mean, we got to the point, our offensive line coach, something was said on the sidelines. One of our teammates tried to suggest a play to the offensive line coach in the fourth quarter. And he was like, hey, I really think the backside zone's open. And our O-line coach doesn't even respond, walks onto the field while the ball's on the other side of the field, yells to the defensive line coach. He's like, hey, Pat, we're going to run the power until you stop it. Comes back over and looks at us and he goes, we're running the power. I think we ran the power like 20 times in the second half. The linebackers are just calling out, watch the power, watch the power. They knew it was coming. We knew we were doing it. And it was just, who's going to stop the other one?
That's amazing.
And it's crazy when you're in that situation and you're looking and like, you're in your stance. You're like, is there anybody on the left side here? Like, come on. The whole box is stacked on the right side.
They just knew where it was going.
Yeah.
They knew where it was going, and it was, are they going to stop us or are we going to bust through? And we just kept busting through them nonstop.
Oh, my goodness.
And our offensive line coach had that mentality. He's like, if he could stand behind the offensive line and say it's going there on two, that's the mentality that he brought to the table and instilled in us. Like, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Man, we could go on for a lot longer on this.
You get us fired up.
I know.
We have one of those
this.
cabin coffees in the morning. We got a bunch of energy. Yeah.
Caffeine ready to go, and now he's talking sports and football, and we're reliving memories. Yeah,
this is so cool. Before I let you go, though, new month, right?
Yes.
Flavor of the month. At
Melt My Heart
Cabin Coffee.
Mocha. It's that Valentine's Day themed. You
Yep.
know? Little dark chocolate and some strawberry in there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Get it
February
for your
1st,
girlfriend.
it's over there.
Get it for your boyfriend, partners, whatever you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we sell gift cards. It's the place to be. And hopefully they melt your heart in February.
I sent you a text. I didn't mean to bother you on a Sunday either, but
Not at all.
we stopped. My wife and I went through, and she's like, well, I want to grab some coffee. So we went to Cabin Coffee, and she ordered hers, the white Palomino with almond milk in there. And the words, it's a podcast, I could say this. It's fucking amazing. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
My 6-year-old's sitting in the back. She's like, yeah, I'm going to be coming back for that one.
Yeah, I
So
read the text. I
texted it.
smiled, and I just sent the heart because I don't think anything else needs to be said after that. After that line right there, I'm like, yep, that's it. Perfect.
She did ask. She's like, did Joe say anything? I said, I got a heart. I got a heart.
I don't think you need any words.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, speaking about calling out, so we've shared some of Dan's posts of the podcast on our social media. So I had the opportunity to look at your social media, and I saw a picture from the last Packer game with you and your son in uniform. And I was going to say, I don't like your game day fit. I saw you had sleeves on. Well, what's up with the sleeves? Your son's not even wearing sleeves, and you got sleeves. What, are you scared of the cold, Dan? Like, I just looked at it, I was like, come on, man. You gotta go skin to win.
You got
Skin
me.
to win.
I thought I was accomplishing that with the pants that were like
Everything
2
else
sizes
didn't look
too small.
good, but I was impressed.
Hey, the kid, by the way, he took it. He's like all into football right now.
That's awesome.
And he dove into the couch 2 weeks ago today now. Head hit the ceiling, staples in his head. And so we had to take him. You know what he did yesterday? He's like, okay, he got his helmet on, and he starts banging his head against the windowsill. It's good. So he's ready to go back in there. He's just going to wear the helmet right now.
I don't want to say this,
That is
but
awesome.
is that the making of an offensive lineman? I
could
mean,
be.
I don't know. Like, it sounds like he's got a little
I
offensive
will say
lineman blood
this.
going
He's
through him.
6. I'm not even making this up. He's 6. He's already planning on playing for the Badgers, he said.
Ooh,
That's awesome.
That's great.
And
Very
he's like,
cool.
Dad, I don't know what position to play. Running back, wide receiver, or punter. So he's got options, I guess.
Yes,
but
yes, he
yeah,
does.
he's dead set on playing for the Badgers.
awesome.
Well, better than my son. My son's 13, and he's becoming a really good football player right now. He's a hard worker. But when he was around that age, he wanted to play in the band at Wisconsin and wanted to be a tuba player. So at least your son has a little higher expectations at the
Yeah.
age of 6 than my son did.
I had to go
He
buy him
was
a
band member.
mouthpiece for his plastic helmet, too, so he's got his mouthpiece in and everything.
That's great.
Yeah,
That is
it's
great.
awesome.
Make sure he uses his hands when he blocks, though. If
Yeah.
he's practicing that old lineman, hands in front, thumbs up.
All right. I had to go outside and play catch with him, and that, like, as soon as school, with the weather now, he's like, let's go outside, play football. I'm like,
Awesome.
all right.
Awesome.
We got to embrace it now. So, dudes, appreciate it, man. Looking forward again to your guys' podcast coming out. And, yeah, you got me there, Bill. On
No
was good.
sleeves. No sleeves.
Dang it. All right. Guys, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Awesome conversation again with Joe and Bill. Big thanks to those two guys for always popping on every week. Hey, that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast, though. Appreciate you tuning in. If you got a few seconds, don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and a positive review wherever you listen to your podcast, like Apple or Spotify. That way others can find the podcast. And don't forget to click that follow and subscribe button. It's for free. Till next time, I'm Dan Casper. I will talk to you on the next episode of the Man Cave Podcast.